Ferrari has joined Red Bull in making an official complaint against McLaren's front wing because these two teams think this part of McLaren's car is what gives them a big advantage over everyone else. Obviously, the team from Woking has been the only one on the grid that could add new parts to their car without getting slower or hitting a wall with how much better they could make it. This really made some F1 experts and team bosses raise their eyebrows. But will these complaints be ignored? And if not, could McLaren hit a wall in the rest of the 2024 season if their front wing's bendiness gets changed more by the FIA? It's obvious that McLaren's improvement is something that confused the entire F1 grid simply because they could not just close the gap to Red Bull from Miami onwards, but they made a huge gap compared to the Austrian team who was beating them by the lot in the first 5 races of the season. All of the other teams on the grid like Ferrari and Mercedes tried to bring in big changes that they promised would bring huge speed to their cars, but it seems like they didn't get nearly as much speed as they originally hoped. The same thing that happened with Red Bull, who thought they would be 0.2 of a second faster after the Hungarian Grand Prix, but all they did was make the gap between them and McLaren even bigger. However, now it feels like Helmut Marko and Christian Horner's request for McLaren's front wing to be looked at again will be joined by Ferrari too. Fred Vasseur is also a bit unsure when it comes to whether McLaren's car is legal. Apart from McLaren's car, it seems like Mercedes' front wing bendiness is also something that caught the attention of both Vasseur and Horner. There will be big talks with the FIA about using these bendy wings for the rest of 2024. The wings of these two teams have gotten a lot of attention over the last few races because they seem to be bending more than the rules allow. However, the FIA has done proper tests and the wings have been found to be in the legal part of the rulebook. In general, wings bending is something that creates more downforce for the cars as they get pushed by the forces of F1 cars with certain amounts of bending allowed, but this isn't sitting well with Helmut Marko, who said that McLaren and Mercedes wings need to be properly looked into because he's worried there's something totally wrong with how the Woking and Brackley teams are following the rulebook. First time this question came up, the FIA put cameras on the front wings to watch the bending of this part of the car, which is not allowed by the sporting rules of the current rules era. However, throughout the last few races, some sneaky photos were taken of McLaren and Mercedes front wings bending and flexing when hitting the curbs and on the main straights. This is definitely helping the airflow and the overall performance of the car, helping the tire wear and the aerodynamics of the car to a much bigger extent when talking about this situation. Horner has put the responsibility in the FIA's hands, as he said, "I think the regulations are very clear and I think this isn't an FIA issue. Obviously it's in their tests that they have passed, but then you have to look at the exact words of the regulations. If you look back to 2021, certainly around Baku time, there was a change to the front wing regulations. And even though our wings passed the test, it was using air bendiness. It was an FIA issue. We'll leave it and trust them to deal with it. But if it is okay, then you have to join it." Obviously, Red Bull thinks their front wing is nowhere near the same as what McLaren has, and this might be one of the reasons why the gap between these two teams has changed in favor of the Woking team so quickly. And the fact that Ferrari has joined the complaint with Red Bull makes this argument even stronger. A similar situation happened with Mercedes' DAS system back in 2020, but it didn't get banned until 2021. Even though it was said to be illegal in the same season, it was brought in by Mercedes. As I mentioned earlier in this video, Vasseur is also putting his hope in the FIA that the governing body will do the right thing here and will do a lot more than just put cameras on the front wings of cars. Talking more about this matter, the Frenchman said, "That is a discussion I don't want to have with you, the media. I will have it with FIA Technical Director Nicolas Tombazis, but we have to respect the decision of the FIA and will deal with it internally with the governing body." Even so, the situation cannot really be accepted from Red Bull's side because obviously the team said that they've taken a wrong turn somewhere in their development and now pointing the finger at the team that's been able to outdevelop them in the mid-season game is not really something that looks good for their future. But Verstappen said that with this speed they won't win any races until the end of the season, while Marko said that he expects the team to be competitive again in Austin, which is in October. The next 2 races in Baku and Singapore could be the turning point in the championship because it's expected that Verstappen will lose even more ground to Norris, and with that, he is also expected to lose more ground to Leclerc and Piastri, who are also pushing hard from behind and are not as far behind as you would think. Marko spoke about Verstappen's admission about the RB20 in Monza, and when talking about it, the veteran Austrian said, "Max recognized on Sunday where the weaknesses of the car are. Together with the engineers, a decision was made on how to improve the car and make it competitive again. We just need to find out which part made the car worse. If we knew that, we wouldn't be in this situation." The experiments from Red Bull will continue in the next 2 races in Baku and Singapore because the nature of these tracks is anything but good for the RB20. And if the running order stays as it was in Monza, then it couldn't be worse for Verstappen and Red Bull, who will definitely drop to 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship and have around 30 to 40 points of a lead over Norris in the Drivers' Championship. Again, the issue is in the cars. direction, and the only way they could have hoped that something will change is that McLaren's car would suffer from a change of the front wing's bendiness, and it would somehow return it to the midfield or at least make it the second fastest car. Even with this in mind, the steps that Ferrari have taken with their upgrade package in Monza, especially with the tire management driving 38 laps on one set with Leclerc, shows that Red Bull might face a lot of challenges from other teams other than the orange team. On the other hand, Red Bull and Ferrari can also be thankful that the teammate situation in McLaren is still not sorted out as it should be. While Stella admitted that there might be a bigger need for team orders in the rest of 2024 if they want to see Norris win the championship in the drivers category, Brown has gone against this belief. The CEO of McLaren F1 said that the current situation in McLaren is reminding him a lot of the Sinnepro's time in McLaren, which is definitely a statement that would be used for mocking one of the most hated human beings on the grid. Talking more about this, Brown said, "They're both young drivers who want to win. We've always believed in having two number ones. That's always been McLaren's way. It can be difficult to manage. We've seen it with Senna and Prost. They get along great. They do race each other clean, and it's philosophical. Are you a one-car team or a two-car team? The easiest thing would have been for Lando to just run away with it and then not have to put difficult decisions on the pit wall. But Stella and I are taking it one race at a time." Obviously, this was not the attitude that was kept during the Hungarian Grand Prix, and through no fault of his own, Norris led the race thanks to the fact that the strategy was messed up by McLaren for P. So the team wanted to justify their decision on the teammate card. We've seen that this particular teammate named Oscar Piastri won't respect any rules, and anytime he has the chance to win a race he will go for it. So if McLaren wants to compete for the championship in the drivers category, they would definitely have to sort out this number one situation, because Norris and Piastri are not ahead of the rest of the grid by 100 points, so they could have the philosophy that Brown has just talked about. With all of this in mind, do you think that the front wing of McLaren's car is illegal? And do you think there's a lot more that can change in the rest of 2024, especially after the requests that have been made by Red Bull and Ferrari? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.